The crystal chandeliers of the Meridian Club cast fractured light across walls paneled in century-old mahogany. This is not a restaurant. This is a temple to power, a private sanctuary where Manhattan's elite conduct the business that shapes markets, governments, and the lives of millions who will never know these rooms exist. Elena Vasquez moves through the shadows like a ghost, 26 years old, thick dark hair pulled back in the regulation bun, uniform pressed to military precision, black vest, white shirt, invisible. Her name tag reads simply, Elena. No last name. Servants here don't need last names. She carries a silver tray bearing 4 glasses of Petrus, 1989, each pour worth more than her weekly paycheck. Her movements are practiced, economical, designed to occupy the minimum possible space in a room where space itself is currency. The private dining room can seat 12. Tonight, it holds 4 men who together control more wealth than most nations. They don't look up when she enters. They never do. Elena sets down the glasses with surgical precision. Her fingers don't tremble. They haven't trembled in years, not since she learned that trembling hands get you fired. And being fired means defaulting on student loans that have metastasized into a 6-figure debt that grows while she sleeps. She retreats to the corner, stands still, breathes shallow, becomes furniture. This is the art of invisibility she has perfected over 3 years at the Meridian. The art of being present without existing. The art of hearing everything while understanding nothing. Or so they believe. What the men at the table don't know, what no one at the Meridian knows, is that Elena Vasquez holds a master's degree in international finance from Columbia University, graduated summa cum laude. What they don't know is that she speaks 5 languages fluently and reads 3 more. What they don't know is that her thesis on cross-border acquisition fraud was cited in 17 academic journals and caught the attention of the Securities and Exchange Commission. What they don't know is that her mother's cancer treatment cost $847,000 and insurance covered $12,000. And her father's heart gave out 6 months after the funeral, and the medical bills from both deaths now sit on Elena's shoulders like stones. So, here she stands, invisible, brilliant, drowning. The conversation at the table washes over her like white noise. She doesn't need to listen. She's heard 100 conversations like this, men discussing billions like pocket change, companies like chess pieces, people like numbers on a spreadsheet. But tonight, something catches her ear. A name, a company, a number, and everything changes. The 4 men at the table represent the kind of wealth that doesn't appear on Forbes lists. The quiet money, the old money, the money that moves governments and breaks economies. At the head sits Marcus Ashworth, 72, silver-haired patriarch of Ashworth Capital. His family has been buying and selling American industry since the Gilded Age. His face is carved granite, emotionless, calculating, accustomed to being obeyed. To his right, Jonathan Crane, 58, hedge fund titan, known on Wall Street as the surgeon for his precision in dismembering struggling companies. His smile never reaches his eyes. Across from Crane, David Chen, 45, tech billionaire, the youngest at the table but no less dangerous. He built his fortune in artificial intelligence and has recently turned his algorithmic eyes toward traditional finance. And at the foot of the table, the man who has called this meeting, Victor Strauss, 61, CEO of Strauss Financial Partners, the man known in certain circles as the architect of 3 sovereign debt crises. Elena knows these faces. She's served them before. She knows Ashworth takes his whiskey neat. Crane is allergic to shellfish. Chen doesn't drink alcohol, and Strauss will send back any wine he deems insufficiently aged. She knows their preferences like she knows the shape of her own hands. What she doesn't know, what she's about to learn, is what they're planning tonight. Victor Strauss opens a leather portfolio and slides documents across the table. Gentlemen, what I'm about to show you doesn't leave this room. His voice is soft, cultured, the kind of voice that's never had to shout because it's never been ignored. Meridian Pharmaceuticals, 47 years of medical innovation, currently valued at $16 billion. By this time next month, we will own it for 4. Crane leans forward, interested. The FDA approval? I thought their Alzheimer's drug was tracking positively? It was. Strauss's smile is thin, reptilian. Until certain concerns came to light regarding their Phase 3 trial data. Chen frowns. What kind of concerns? The kind that will appear in the Wall Street Journal in approximately 72 hours. Silence. The men exchange glances. Ashworth speaks for the first time, his voice like gravel shifting. You're certain of the timing? I'm certain of everything. Strauss taps the documents. Because I created it. In her corner, Elena's heart stops. She knows what she's hearing. She knows the legal term, market manipulation, securities fraud, the deliberate destruction of a company's value through fabricated information to enable hostile acquisition at a fraction of market price. She knows this because she wrote about it, she studied it. She testified about it once in a seminar at Columbia, explaining how such schemes work and how they're detected. And now she's watching one unfold in real time. Strauss continues, oblivious to the woman in the corner who has become very, very still. The documentation is flawless. A researcher at their facility, a researcher who used to be at their facility, has provided affidavits alleging data manipulation. The FDA will be forced to pause their review. The stock will crater. And we will be ready. The researcher, Chen asks carefully, can he be traced back to us? He can be traced back to a numbered account in the Caymans. Beyond that, Strauss shrugs. He doesn't exist. Elena's mind is racing now, processing every word, filing every detail. She shouldn't be doing this. She should be invisible. She should be furniture. But furniture doesn't have a master's thesis on exactly this type of fraud. Furniture didn't spend 18 months researching the mechanics of market manipulation. Furniture doesn't recognize what Victor Strauss is about to say next, the technical phrase that will either confirm or destroy her growing suspicion. Strauss slides a second set of documents across the table, financial projections, acquisition timelines, a web of shell companies that would take a team of forensic accountants months to untangle. Elena moves to refill their water glasses. It's not required, they're barely touched, but it gives her an excuse to get closer, to see the papers, to confirm what her ears have already told her. She leans in, pouring with mechanical precision, and her eyes scan the documents with the speed of someone who's read thousands like them. What she sees stops her cold. The structure is elaborate, brilliantly constructed, but it's wrong. Not morally wrong, though it is that too, but technically wrong, structurally wrong. There are errors in the documentation that no legitimate financial architect would make. Mistakes that reveal the entire construction as a house of cards. The first error catches her eye like a flashing light. A reference to Section 13D, notification requirements, in a context that suggests the author doesn't understand what Section 13D actually requires. It's a minor mistake, the kind only someone deeply versed in securities law would catch. Elena is deeply versed in securities law. She moves to Crane's glass, her eyes still scanning. Another error, this one in the timeline. The documents reference a quiet period that doesn't align with SEC regulation. Someone has clearly researched the terminology but doesn't understand its practical application. And then she sees it. The signature block at the bottom of the affidavit. The researcher's sworn statement, notarized and witnessed, alleging data manipulation at Meridian Pharmaceuticals. The signature reads, Dr. Heinrich Müller, Ph.D., and Elena Vasquez feels the room tilt beneath her feet, because she knows that name. Heinrich Müller was a guest lecturer at Columbia during her final year. A brilliant biochemist, yes. A researcher of some renown. But he was not, had never been, employed by Meridian Pharmaceuticals. She knows this because she wrote a paper on Meridian's research team. She knows their organizational structure, their key personnel, their hiring history for the past decade. Heinrich Müller's name appears nowhere in that history, which means the affidavit is a forgery, which means the entire scheme is built on a lie, which means the men at this table are about to commit one of the largest securities frauds in American history based on fabricated evidence, and they don't even know it. Elena finishes her rounds and retreats to her corner, her mind spinning. Someone has played Victor Strauss. Someone has sold him a forgery so convincing that he's about to stake billions on it. Someone is going to let these men commit career-ending, potentially prison-worthy crimes, and then what? She watches Strauss shuffling through his papers, watches his confident smile, watches him explain the intricacies of a plan that will collapse the moment anyone looks closely at its foundation. And she realizes something else. The formatting of the documents, the font choices, the spacing. She's seen this style before, in academic fraud cases she studied. The documents are too perfect, too polished. They have the artificial precision of something created to deceive rather than to communicate. A real whistleblower affidavit would have imperfections, personal quirks, the kind of small variations that come from genuine human authorship. These documents are sterile, manufactured. Strauss is still talking, laying out the timeline for the acquisition, discussing how they'll structure the tender offer, debating the merits of different financial instruments for laundering the initial stake. Elena looks at the men around the table, men who could destroy her with a phone call, men who've never seen her as anything more than a pair of hands carrying drinks, and she makes a decision. It is possibly the most important decision of her life. She clears her throat. The sound is small, insignificant. No one looks up. She clears her throat again, louder this time. Strauss pauses mid-sentence. His eyes flick toward her, annoyed, dismissive, ready to tell her to refill something or leave. Yes? His voice drips with impatience. Elena steps forward. Her heart is pounding. Her hands are steady. Excuse me, Mr. Strauss. I couldn't help but notice the affidavit from Dr. Muller. The temperature in the room drops 10 degrees. 4 sets of eyes turn toward her. Cold, hostile, dangerous. What did you just say? Strauss's voice is quiet, controlled, lethal. Elena doesn't flinch. I said, I noticed the affidavit from Dr. Heinrich Muller, the one claiming data manipulation at Meridian. Crane is on his feet. Who the hell do you think you are? I'm the person who's about to save you from the biggest mistake of your careers. The silence that follows is absolute, the kind of silence that precedes violence, or revelation, or both. Marcus Ashworth speaks first, his ancient voice cutting through the tension like a blade. Young lady, I don't know what game you think you're playing, but I suggest you— Heinrich Muller, Elena interrupts, and there's something in her voice now, an authority that has no place in a waitress's tone. PhD in biochemistry from the University of Munich, 2003. Published researcher, 17 peer-reviewed papers, primarily in neural plasticity and protein folding. Guest lecturer at Columbia University, spring semester, 2019. The men exchange glances. Strauss has gone very still. What he is not, Elena continues, stepping closer to the table, is now, or has ever been, an employee of Meridian Pharmaceuticals. Your affidavit claims he was a senior researcher there from 2018 to 2024. Meridian's public filings, their patent applications, their published research, none of it contains his name. I know this because I wrote a comprehensive analysis of their research infrastructure for my master's thesis. David Chen's face has gone pale. That's impossible. You verified what someone wanted you to verify. Elena picks up the affidavit, a gesture so audacious that Crane actually sputters in outrage. This document is a forgery, a sophisticated one, but a forgery nonetheless. Whoever sold this to Mr. Strauss is playing a very different game than you think. Strauss finally speaks, his voice a dangerous whisper. And how would a waitress know anything about— Because this waitress, Elena says, meeting his eyes without flinching, has a master's degree in international finance from Columbia University. Because this waitress wrote her thesis on cross-border acquisition fraud, with a particular focus on fabricated whistleblower testimony. Because this waitress has spent 3 years serving drinks to men like you while drowning in medical debt from her parents' deaths, and in all that time, she has never once seen documentation this flawed, presented with this much confidence. She sets the affidavit down and picks up another document, the financial structure outline. Your Section 13D reference is misapplied. The provision you're citing applies to passive investment disclosures, not hostile acquisitions. A first-year law student would catch that mistake, which means whoever created these documents wanted them to look authentic without actually being legally sound. Crane is staring at her like she's grown a second head. This is insane. Victor, who is this woman? But Strauss isn't listening. He's looking at Elena with something new in his eyes. Not anger anymore, but calculation. Fear. The dawning recognition of a man who's just realized he's been outmaneuvered. The timeline, Elena continues, relentless now. Your documents reference a quiet period that doesn't exist under current SEC regulation. The formatting is too uniform. Real legal documents have inconsistencies, human touches. These are manufactured, clean, sterile. She pulls out her phone, a gesture that makes Ashworth's security team twitch, and pulls up a document. I took the liberty of photographing the documents when I was refilling your water. I hope you'll forgive the breach of protocol. Here, she shows the screen to Chen, who understands technology better than any of them, is a metadata analysis I ran while you were discussing tender offer structures. The documents were created 17 days ago using software licensed to a shell company in Cyprus. The same shell company, incidentally, that appears in the acquisition structure as an intermediary holding entity. Chen's face has gone white. We would have caught that. Would you? When was the last time any of you actually read the fine print instead of relying on your analysts? When was the last time you verified primary sources instead of accepting polished presentations? She turns to Strauss and her voice softens, but not kindly. The way a surgeon's voice softens before delivering terminal news. Mr. Strauss, someone has set you up. Someone who knows your methods, your appetite for pharmaceutical plays, your willingness to use aggressive tactics. They've created a trap so elegant that you were ready to walk into it with billions of dollars and your entire professional reputation. Strauss's voice is hoarse. Who? I don't know, but I can tell you this. The moment you act on these documents, the moment you make your move on Meridian based on this fabricated evidence, someone will be waiting. The SEC will receive an anonymous tip. The Wall Street Journal will get the real story, not the fake one you were planning to plant, but the story of how Victor Strauss and his associates attempted to manipulate markets using forged documents. And whoever is behind this will walk away clean, probably having shorted your stocks before the scandal breaks. The room has become a tomb. Ashworth's face is granite, but there's something new there, respect, grudging, and unwilling. Crane looks like he's going to be sick. Chen is frantically scrolling through his phone, probably trying to verify what Elena has told them. And Strauss, Victor Strauss, architect of sovereign debt crises, destroyer of companies, master of the dark arts of finance, looks like a man who's just seen his empire crumbling. This is impossible, he whispers. Harmon vetted these documents. My best people, your best people, Elena says quietly. See what they expect to see. They verify sources against sources that have been prepared for them. They don't question the foundation because the foundation looks solid. That's the genius of this trap. It exploits the assumptions that powerful people make about their own infallibility. She takes a step back, suddenly aware of how far she's gone. These men could destroy her. They could make her disappear into a legal nightmare that would make her current debt look like pocket change. But they're not looking at her like something to destroy. They're looking at her like something they've never seen before. The next 48 hours are chaos. Elena doesn't sleep. She can't. Ashworth has sequestered her in a suite at the Meridian, not as a prisoner, but as an asset too valuable to lose. She's given access to every document, every communication, every piece of the puzzle that Strauss has assembled over the past 6 months, and piece by piece, she takes it apart. The trail leads to Richard Harmon, Strauss's own chief strategy officer, the man who brought him the documents, the man who vouched for their authenticity. The man who has been skimming from Strauss's operations for 7 years while building a competing fund in secret. Elena finds it all, the offshore accounts, the communications with Meridian's actual competitors, the elaborate plan to destroy Strauss's reputation and seize his clients in the aftermath. When Harmon walks into the office on Friday morning, he's met by federal agents. Elena watches from a conference room as they lead him out in handcuffs, this man who thought he was the smartest person in every room, whose scheme would have destroyed careers and possibly lives if it had succeeded. He sees her through the glass. Their eyes meet. His face contorts with rage, the fury of a man who's just realized he was undone by someone he never even noticed, someone invisible, someone who was supposed to be furniture. "Who the hell are you?" he screams as they drag him past. "Who are you?" Elena doesn't answer. She doesn't need to. She knows who she is. She's always known. The world is just finally starting to catch up. Later that evening, Marcus Ashworth asks to see her privately. They meet in his personal office, a room Elena has never seen, though she's worked in this building for 3 years. The walls are lined with first editions. A Rothko hangs above the fireplace. The desk is older than the Constitution. Ashworth gestures to a chair. Elena sits. It feels strange, being invited to sit in a room where she's always stood. For a long moment, the old man just looks at her. "Elena Vasquez," he says finally. "I've done some research. Columbia, summa cum laude. Your thesis was cited by the SEC. You were offered positions at Goldman, Morgan Stanley, 3 boutique firms. You turned them all down." Elena's throat tightens. "My mother was diagnosed 2 weeks before graduation. Then my father. There wasn't time for a career. There was only time for hospitals and bills and figuring out how to survive. So you became a waitress. I became someone who could work flexible hours, pay rent, and chip away at debt that grows faster than I can pay it. The waitress part was incidental." Ashworth nods slowly. "You saved us, you know. Victor alone would have lost $3 billion. Crane, another $1.5 billion. I don't even want to calculate my exposure." "I know. That's not arrogance in your voice. That's just knowledge." He seems almost amused. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How rare you are? I know what I can do, Mr. Ashworth. I've always known. The world just didn't make space for it. He leans back in his chair, studying her with those ancient, calculating eyes. Tell me about your parents. Elena hesitates. No one has asked her that. Not in years. Not since the funerals, the legal paperwork, the medical bill negotiations that consumed every waking moment. My mother was a librarian, public library in Queens. She believed that knowledge was the only thing that couldn't be taken from you. She made me read everything: philosophy, economics, history, science. She said education was armor against a world that wanted to keep people small. Her voice catches. She steadies it. My father was an accountant, small firm, nothing fancy, but he could look at numbers and see stories. He taught me that every spreadsheet is a narrative, that the truth always hides in the details that people think don't matter. They sound like remarkable people. They were ordinary people who believed in extraordinary things. They believed in me. Elena's eyes are bright, but she doesn't let the tears fall. And I couldn't save them. All that education, all that armor, and when it mattered most, I couldn't save them. The silence that follows is different from before, softer, more human. You saved us, Ashworth says quietly. 4 men who've spent their lives believing we couldn't be fooled. You walked into a room where you were invisible, and you made us see. That's not nothing, Miss Vasquez. That's not nothing at all. Ashworth opens a drawer and removes a folder. I've taken the liberty of drafting something. Victor, Jonathan, and David have all signed off. I hope you'll forgive the presumption. He slides the folder across the desk. Elena opens it, reads. Her hands, which have been steady through everything, begin to shake. Director of Strategic Risk Assessment, Ashworth says. A new position. You'd report directly to me. Salary commensurate with your expertise. And before you ask, yes, that includes full debt resolution. We've calculated the total. It's been handled. Elena looks up, unable to speak. You'd build a team. Hire whoever you want. Your mandate would be simple. Find the things we miss. Identify the traps before we walk into them. Be the person in the room who sees what everyone else overlooks. This is... Elena's voice fails. She tries again. This is too much. It's not enough. Ashworth's voice is firm. You saved 4 careers, prevented a fraud that would have shaken markets, and exposed a traitor in Victor's own ranks. If anything, we're underpaying you. Elena stares at the papers. The numbers swim before her eyes. The salary alone would have taken her 20 years to earn at the Meridian. The bonus structure is beyond anything she'd allowed herself to imagine. But something catches her eye. A clause at the bottom of the last page. What's this? She asks. The Vasquez Foundation for Financial Literacy? Ashworth almost smiles. Almost. A modest endowment. $10 million to start, with matching contributions from all 4 of us annually. Scholarships for first generation, students pursuing degrees in finance, economics, and related fields. Name for your parents if you'll permit it. Now the tears do fall. Elena doesn't try to stop them. Why? She whispers. Why would you do this? Because brilliance shouldn't be invisible, Miss Vasquez. Because talent shouldn't have to wait tables while the mediocre inherit the earth. Because somewhere out there, right now, there's another young woman who's been told she's not enough, who's drowning in circumstances beyond her control, who's one opportunity away from changing the world. He pauses. And because your parents were right. Knowledge is armor, but armor is useless if no one teaches you how to wear it. Elena reads the documents again. The whole thing. Every clause, every provision. Then she looks up at Marcus Ashworth, this man she's served drinks to for 3 years without ever truly seeing. I have conditions. His eyebrows rise. Do you now? Full autonomy in hiring. No interference from existing department heads. Direct access to all documentation, all deals, no exceptions. And... She hesitates, then pushes forward. The Foundation's scholarship committee must include at least 3 recipients. People who've actually lived the experience, not just people who've studied it. Ashworth studies her for a long moment. You're negotiating. I'm establishing terms. There's a difference. And then, for the first time in the 3 years Elena has known him, Marcus Ashworth laughs. A real laugh, warm and genuine and startled out of him. Done. He extends his hand. Welcome to Ashworth Capital, Miss Vasquez. I suspect you're going to change everything. Elena takes his hand. Her grip is steady.